So far from this being a complete open mystery with nothing to go on, you've actually got quite a lot of pieces of this jigsaw puzzle already. Is that right?
We're just seeking the final piece now.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you can provide that final piece, if you have any information, call us here in the studio.
A true crime documentary recreates the heartbreaking case of young Jenny Nicholl, a tragedy that shook public opinion across the United Kingdom for many years. We travel to Richmond, North Yorkshire, a region famous for its breathtaking natural beauty, vast fields, rolling hills, and kind, welcoming people. Amid this peaceful setting, the life of Jenny Nicholl, born on October 6, 1985, revolved around family, friendship, and music. At 19 years old, Jenny was full of energy, loved hiking, exploring the countryside, and camping outdoors. She was especially passionate about music, a devoted fan of Jimi Hendrix, and a member of a local rock band called No Fouling. Her band had performed at the Richmond Live Music Festival and reached the finals of the Battle of the Bands competition in 2002. When she wasn't performing, Jenny worked at the local co-op store and was a familiar face in the pubs around Richmond, where she often played music with her friends. Those who knew her described her as someone who always radiated positivity, with a gentle smile, a kind heart, and a willingness to help anyone in need. Jenny was the youngest of two sisters and lived with her parents, Anne, a dedicated former cleaner, and Brian, a retired Army major, in their cozy home on Bolton Avenue. Their lives seemed peaceful until one summer day in 2005, when everything suddenly took a tragic turn, marking the beginning of a case that would leave the entire nation in shock. On June 30th, 2005, Jenny Nicholl left her home on Bolton Avenue without saying exactly where she was going or who she planned to meet. Based on what she took with her, it appeared she was preparing for a short camping trip, something not unusual for her, as she often went out with friends on weekends and returned the next day. Before leaving, she said goodbye to her mother, Anne, mentioning that she wouldn't be home that night. That was the last time her family ever saw Jenny. The next day, she was supposed to pick up a friend to go out together, but she never showed up. Her friends made repeated phone calls, but none were answered. When Monday came and Jenny still didn't show up for her shift at the co-op store, concern quickly turned into fear. 4 days after she left home, Anne officially reported her daughter missing. That same day, while searching around town on her own, Anne accidentally came across Jenny's white Rover 2420i parked in the lot of the Holly Hill Inn pub in Richmond. The car was locked, with no signs of damage or forced entry. Immediately after Jenny's car was discovered, North Yorkshire Police issued a missing person alert along with a detailed description, hoping that someone, somewhere, might have seen her. Jenny was described as a slender young woman, about 5 feet 3 inches tall, with green eyes and shoulder-length blonde hair that she often tied back in a ponytail. When she left home, she was wearing blue jeans, black sneakers, and a khaki parka jacket with a hood, her favorite piece of clothing that she often wore on camping trips. Hundreds of posters with Jenny's photo and detailed descriptions were plastered across the streets, post offices, shops, and pubs in the town of Richmond, urging anyone with information to contact the police immediately. The family only needed one clue, one small detail, no matter how faint, that could point them in the right direction. A few days after Jenny's disappearance, her parents, Brian and Anne, reached their breaking point. They decided to search for her themselves, heading toward Sandbeck Plantation, a wooded area where Jenny often went camping or for walks. And it was there, in the same forest Jenny loved so much, that her parents made a discovery that left everyone stunned. Beneath a thick layer of damp leaves, they found some of Jenny's personal belongings, including makeup items and a familiar nightdress, partially hidden under the trees, as if someone had deliberately tried to conceal them. Police were immediately called to the scene, sealed off the area, and began collecting evidence. But there was no indication that Jenny had walked away on her own. Her friends described her as a private person who rarely opened up and tended to keep things to herself, which made reconstructing her final days before she vanished an immense challenge. Investigators realized that to uncover the truth behind her disappearance, they would have to work not only with physical evidence, but also delve deep into the inner world of this young woman, where the answers to the mystery might be hidden. The search for Jenny quickly expanded on a large scale. Richmond police mobilized dozens of officers who went door to door in the area, interviewing residents and checking every corner in hopes of piecing together the full picture of the young woman's final days. By July 6th, investigators officially announced they were extremely concerned for Jenny's safety. The following day, an emergency coordination center was established at the Richmond police station, with 20 officers assigned exclusively to the case. Since Jenny was a familiar face in many of the local pubs, officers spread out across town, speaking with anyone who had seen or known her, hoping to find a witness who could provide a clue. By July 10th, Detective Inspector Pete Martin, who was leading the investigation, spoke at a press conference, making a heartfelt plea for Jenny, if she was out there somewhere, to contact her family in any way she could. He said, "Her parents are waiting by the phone. Even the smallest sign would be enough to ace their worries." Inside the small home on Bolton Avenue, Brian and Anne sat by the phone every day, hoping it would ring. But for weeks afterward, only silence filled the house. Detective Inspector Pete Martin stated that the investigation team had been strengthened by the overwhelming support from the public. He shared, "Everyone in Richmond wants us to find this young woman and bring her home to her family as soon as possible. We are doing everything we can to reunite Jenny with her loved ones." For weeks, large-scale searches were carried out. Every forest, hill, and stream around Richmond was meticulously combed through. No stone was left unturned. Yet despite all those efforts, there were no results. Every trace of Jenny seemed to have vanished completely. Then, while reviewing her personal relationships, investigators uncovered an important detail. Jenny had once known a man named David Hodgson. David, who was in his early 40s at the time, was married with 2 daughters. He lived locally and had met Jenny because she had attended school with his daughters. Jenny's friends said the relationship between them began when she was very young, and according to accounts, David had taken an interest in her when she was only 14, something that deeply alarmed investigators. At first, when questioned by police, David Hodgson firmly denied having any intimate relationship with Jenny, insisting that they were only friends. However, after hours of interrogation, he changed his statement, admitting that he and Jenny had been romantically involved and had been intimate 5 times, but claimed that it only happened after she had turned 16. Both David and his older brother, Robert Hodgson, were very familiar with the Sandbeck plantation woods, where they had built small wooden huts and shelters for camping, drinking, and hanging out with friends. When asked, David said he had never taken Jenny to those places. Yet forensic results told a different story. DNA evidence found in 2 of those hideouts proved that Jenny had indeed been there, and that the relationship between her and David went far beyond what he had admitted. 9 days after Jenny was last seen, David Hodgson was officially summoned to the Richmond police station for questioning as the primary suspect in the disappearance that had shaken the entire North Yorkshire region. Although David Hodgson had already admitted to having a relationship with Jenny, during his official interrogation, he suddenly changed his statement, claiming that nothing had ever happened between them and that he had nothing to do with her disappearance. However, investigators were highly skeptical of the contradictions in his testimony. Then, a new development made the case even more complicated. Mysterious text messages began to appear. The next day, one of Jenny's close friends, also named Jennifer, received a message supposedly sent from Jenny's phone that read, "Hi Jen, tell Jack I'm okay. Don't let everyone worry. I'm sorry. I'm living in Scotland with my boyfriend. Dad would be mad if he knew. Mom doesn't care anyway. Hope Nick doesn't say anything. Keep your phone off. Tell Dad the car slipped out of gear when I stopped. Take it for repairs and sell it for me. Tell him I'm sorry." Same day, another friend named Nicola received a similar message. "Thought you told my dad already. I might get in trouble for that. I lied to Mom. It's fine. I'm camping in Keswick. It's amazing. Gotta go. Bye." Forensic tracking experts later determined that these messages had been sent from the Carlisle area, near the Scottish border, giving Jenny's family a brief moment of hope that she might still be alive, but also raising serious suspicion that someone was deliberately fabricating a story to mislead the investigation. On July 14th, a new development left Jenny's family even more confused. This time, the message was sent directly to the phone of Jenny's father, Brian. The text, believed to be from Jenny herself, carried a tone of frustration. "Why do you hate me, Dad? I know Mom does too. Tell her I'm gone. I'm not coming back, and the police won't find me. I'm happy living here. Everyone hates me and Rich. My only true friend is Jack. I'll text you again in a few weeks. Tell the police I'm almost 20. I'm not coming back. They can leave me alone. She got me into this mess. It's her fault, not mine. I'm sorry. I just had to go. No food. Always rummaging through my room, eating all my candy. I had to leave. I'm so sorry. Kiss." Location data showed that this message had been sent from the area near the Scottish border. For Anne, it was a glimmer of hope. At least there was still some contact. But for the police, the content only deepened their suspicions that someone else was impersonating Jenny to divert the investigation. The tone and details of the message didn't match her usual texting style or behavior. At first, the text messages eased the family's fears somewhat, since they seemed to show that Jenny was still in touch with her friends and loved ones. To Anne, the familiar tone of the messages convinced her that her daughter really was somewhere out there. So she began searching on her own in the areas around Carlisle and the Scottish border, where the messages had been sent from. But every effort was in vain. No one had seen Jenny, and she never appeared in any of the places Anne visited. After that series of messages, Jenny's phone went completely silent, It was never activated or located again. Detective Inspector Pete Martin later stated, "Those messages included personal details that only someone close to her would know, like the issue with her Rover car or the names of her close friends. That made us believe they weren't written by Jenny herself, but by someone else, someone close enough to know her life well, who deliberately crafted them to make people think she was safe and happy, when in reality, the truth was far more troubling." At that point, the official investigation shifted direction, from a mysterious missing person case to the suspicion that someone close to Jenny was deliberately creating false leads to cover up a much darker truth. In most cases where an adult disappears voluntarily, police can usually detect certain signs of preparation, such as withdrawing cash, booking accommodation, arranging transportation, or at least contacting friends to find a temporary place to stay. These seemingly minor details often create a clear trail showing that the missing person chose to leave on their own. However, in the case of Jenny Nicholl, there were absolutely no such indications. Her bank records showed no unusual activity, no evidence of ticket purchases, vehicle rentals, or travel-related searches. Her account remained untouched, and her bank card had not been used since the day she left home. Most notably, Jenny had prepaid for a package of 25 tanning sessions at a local salon, but had only used 2 of them, a small but telling sign that she had no intention of leaving Richmond for long. All of this led Detective Inspector Pete Martin to a firm conclusion. Jenny's disappearance was not a voluntary act, but a sign that something far more serious and tragic was hidden behind it. During the investigation into Jenny's relationship with David Hodgson, detectives uncovered another detail that made the case even more complicated. They discovered that Jenny not only knew David, but had also been close to his brother, Robert Hodgson. According to friends, just a few weeks before her disappearance, Jenny and Robert had gone camping together in the woods near Richmond. Although both claimed it was merely a friendly outing, the fact that Jenny had been connected to both Hodgson brothers drew particular attention from the police. As autumn arrived, October 6th, Jenny's 20th birthday, came and went without any news. In a desperate effort to keep hope alive, Anne hung a large banner outside the co-op store where her daughter had worked, urging the community to help and come forward with any information. Still images extracted from security cameras, showing Jenny just a few days before she disappeared, were also released publicly by the police. By November 3, 2005, after more than 4 months of fruitless investigation, North Yorkshire Police officially announced that Jenny Nicholl's case was no longer being treated as a simple missing person inquiry. It had now become a full criminal investigation into a tragic case. This decision was based on a series of indirect pieces of evidence, including several irregularities surrounding Jenny's relationship with David Hodgson. That same day, David unexpectedly spoke out in an interview with the Northern Echo, insisting that he had been misunderstood. In the interview, he claimed to have received numerous threats after admitting that he had known and met with Jenny, and he attempted to defend his public image. David stated that shortly before Jenny disappeared, she had confided in him about her intention to go away for a while to start a new life, and that he had even lent her a significant amount of money to help her carry out that plan.
Let's see if we can get a result now in a case that is fraught with emotion, that of 19-year-old Jenny Nicholl. For 6 months now, her mum and dad in Yorkshire have been frantic to know what's become of her. And you must have been frantic when she just disappeared.
Well, I was. Nothing to suggest why she would disappear. She just didn't come home one night, and I didn't find her car until the Monday in the car park, as you just said.
She hadn't taken any money out of the bank, or she hadn't
Nope.
sort of taken a passport or made any preparation?
Still there, money's still in the bank. There was no preparation for leaving home at all. She just didn't come back one evening.
Is that her teddy bear?
This is the teddy that her dad bought her on Christmas, and that went from the home maybe 2.5 months before she left.
So this is a replica, is it?
This is a replica, yeah.
With
yeah.
a little khaki suit on.
Absolutely,
so if
yeah.
anybody's seen that, we want to know about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
D.I. Pete Martin, why have you come to Crime Watch on this now?
We've received some new information which now suggests the answer to this investigation is very, very local.
Very, very local, to Richmond in Yorkshire.
To Richmond itself in Yorkshire, yes.
And yet there were text messages sent on Jenny's phone from Jedburgh and from Carlisle.
Yes, there were, and I believe those text messages were sent by somebody who was very close to Jenny, perhaps even a boyfriend, with the intention of creating a belief that Jenny's still alive, which I don't believe to be the case.
You think she was murdered?
Yes, I do.
So either the killer or perhaps an accomplice deliberately tried to set a false trail?
That's right, yes.
Do you know the whole network of Jenny's friends? I mean, I don't know if you know all the friends she had. Very few people do of teenage daughters. Did you know everybody who knew her?
No, Jenny is quite a deep person and kept a lot to herself. So no, I don't know who her was.
You know some. Presumably you now need to get a complete matrix of everybody.
We do, yes. We're keen to trace all Jenny's friends, and in particular to find out anybody amongst that circle of friends who visited the Carlisle and Jedburgh areas on the dates those messages were sent.
So far from this being a complete open mystery with nothing to go on, you've actually got quite a lot of pieces of this jigsaw puzzle already. Is that right?
We're just seeking the final piece now.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, if you can provide that final piece, if you have any information, call us here in the studio or call the incident room 01609 768 111.
As the investigation expanded, police also examined the personal devices belonging to Jenny's family, including her father Brian Nicholl's laptop, in hopes of finding any clue that could shed light on Jenny's private life, connections, or state of mind before she vanished. However, this line of inquiry unexpectedly led to a shocking discovery. Digital forensic experts found thousands of sensitive images and files related to inappropriate conduct involving minors on Brian's device. Once the information was passed to prosecutors, he was charged with creating and possessing indecent material, and just days after his public appeal on the Crime Watch program, he was brought before Teesside Crown Court. The following May, Brian Nicholl admitted to 16 representative charges and was sentenced to a community rehabilitation order. Although police made it clear that the material was entirely unrelated to Jenny's disappearance, the case devastated the Nicholl family and drew intense media attention, compounding the pain of losing their daughter. On January 17, 2006, after months of gathering evidence and surveillance, North Yorkshire Police arrested David Hodgson and his brother Robert on suspicion of being involved in the tragic case of Jenny Nicholl. However, after questioning and careful review, Robert was released without charge, while David was granted bail pending further investigation. At this point, the case still had no answers, and public pressure continued to mount. By March 2006, police announced that they had brought in a team of retired senior officers to re-examine the entire case file, a highly unusual move, hoping that their experience might uncover overlooked details or hidden angles that had never been explored. This action underscored the investigation team's strong determination to uncover the truth about what really happened to the young woman, Jenny Nicholl. On March 27, 2006, after months of relentless searching, North Yorkshire Police made a major breakthrough in the investigation. Dozens of officers, along with a specialized support team, meticulously combed through every inch of woodland around Richmond, even sifting through layers of soil and decomposed leaves by hand. Finally, they uncovered a crucial piece of evidence: a stuffed teddy bear and a portable stereo belonging to Jenny Nicholl. These two items were discovered in the Sandbeck Plantation Woods, near Longwood Bank, an area Jenny had frequently visited when she was alive. They were the first physical pieces of evidence that definitively confirmed she had been in that area after she was last seen. Detective Inspector Pete Martin emphasized the significance of the discovery, stating, "Both items could provide valuable forensic opportunities." Sandbeck Plantation is a dense forest located on the outskirts of Richmond, a place where David Hodgson and his close friends often gathered to build makeshift wooden huts, drink, play cards, and camp overnight. It was also the very area where police believed Jenny was last seen. After her belongings were found, the search operation was expanded to an unprecedented scale. More than 150 acres of forest were meticulously examined. Soldiers were brought in to assist, and every corner, from rocky caves and abandoned mines to deep marshlands, was thoroughly checked. Yet, after weeks of intense searching, there was still no sign of Jenny. A year passed since the day she vanished, and although hope seemed to be fading, her family's love and longing never did. They organized a memorial service at the local church, where more than 100 residents from the community gathered to share in the family's sorrow. Jenny's aunt, speaking on behalf of her parents, read an emotional tribute. "Jenny was one of a kind, the light of our lives. She was a daughter, a joy, a source of pride for our family, and we will always carry her in our hearts. One day, we believe we will see her again, and all will be well." In the quiet of the service, the soft glow of the candles shimmered like a silent promise that Jenny would never be forgotten. However, investigators did not stop. Even though no new trace of Jenny had been found, they continued to monitor every move of David Hodgson, who had increasingly become the central figure of suspicion. When officers closely reviewed his statements and daily habits, they noticed a detail that caught their attention. On the very day Jenny left home, David had also told his family that he was going camping and left around the same time. He returned the next morning, behaving completely normally, as if nothing had happened. But what stood out were the days that followed, coinciding exactly with the period when the fake text messages were sent from the Carlisle area near the Scottish border. Records revealed that David had rented a car during that time, and when it was returned, the odometer showed hundreds of miles driven. Yet, he could not provide any reasonable explanation for those trips. One of the most significant breakthroughs in the investigation came when police decided to apply forensic linguistics, a field that was entirely new to North Yorkshire at the time. They enlisted Professor Malcolm Coulthard, one of the United Kingdom's leading experts in this discipline, who had worked on several major cases involving the linguistic analysis of text messages and letters. His task was to examine all the text message data related to the case. More than 100 messages that David Hodgson had sent, 11 genuine messages written by Jenny before her disappearance, and 3 mysterious messages sent in July after she was gone. Professor Coulthard explained, "The interesting thing about text messages is that they're short, yet deeply personal. The way people abbreviate, misspell words, or use symbols creates a unique linguistic fingerprint." His first goal was to determine whether the messages sent after June 30th were truly written by Jenny, or whether they were the work of someone else deliberately imitating her style to deceive her friends and family. During the analysis, Professor Malcolm Coulthard identified subtle yet crucial differences between Jenny's genuine texts and those sent after she vanished. He found that both used the number 2 in place of 2, but in her real messages, Jenny always ran it together, such as 2go or 2c, whereas in the post-disappearance texts there was always a space. For example, 2go or 2c. In addition, Jenny naturally used personal contractions like I'm or I'm not, while the suspect messages used I am and even ain't, a form not typical of her style. Jenny also displayed her own texting quirks, such as spelling phone with an F as phone and writing see you in full. By contrast, the fabricated messages used the standard spelling phone and at times substituted me for my. These seemingly small details, according to Professor Coulthard, were sufficient to conclude that it is highly unlikely those messages were sent by Jenny Nicholl. From that point, a critical question emerged. If Jenny hadn't written those messages, then who had? To find the answer, investigators provided Professor Coulthard with sample texts from David Hodgson, along with handwritten passages he produced during a spelling test. The results were startling. Numerous similarities appeared immediately. David frequently misspelled the word off as of, to the extent that he even had to ask officers how to spell it correctly. He also wrote might as might, and consistently omitted apostrophes in words like ain't and didn't, exactly matching the writing style seen in the texts sent after Jenny's disappearance. Based on this analysis, Professor Coulthard concluded, "From a linguistic standpoint, I cannot state with absolute certainty who sent them, but these features place David Hodgson among the very small group of people most likely to have written them." Professor Malcolm Coulthard concluded that from a forensic linguistics perspective, he could not state with absolute certainty that David Hodgson was the person who sent the messages. But he emphasized that David shared many of the same unique linguistic features and fell within the very small group of individuals most likely to have written them. He believed that David had deliberately attempted to mimic Jenny's texting style to deceive others, but failed to accurately reproduce her specific habits, spacing, and subtle linguistic nuances. Based on this analysis, combined with a chain of physical evidence, police developed the theory that Jenny Nicholl may have met with tragedy during a camping trip with David Hodgson, possibly after an argument or altercation on the night she disappeared. Although the exact location of the scene was never determined, investigators believed that Jenny's body had been hidden or buried somewhere within the Sandbeck Plantation woods. After the incident, David allegedly created the illusion that Jenny had left voluntarily by sending fake text messages from her phone, particularly after his first police interview, in an effort to mislead the investigation and convince everyone that she was still alive and had simply gone away by choice. For Anne, the pain of not knowing where her daughter was consumed every moment of her life. She once tearfully said, "I can't bear the thought that my little girl might be lying somewhere alone in the cold, damp ground." Meanwhile, police continued to pursue the case's biggest unanswered question: what was the motive? According to the investigation files, David Hodgson was known to be extremely jealous and possessive. Even seeing Jenny talk to another man could trigger his anger and controlling behavior. Notably, in May 2005, just a few weeks before Jenny's disappearance, she had grown close to Robert Hodgson, David's older brother. The two had gone camping together and were believed to have developed feelings for each other, though they never made it public. When Robert tried to reach out after the trip, he received no reply from Jenny's phone. He later cooperated with police and led them to the area where they had camped, but no trace of her was ever found. To investigators, this painted a much clearer picture. When Jenny became close to Robert, David, who had secretly been in a relationship with her, was overtaken by intense jealousy. That jealousy and possessiveness were believed to have been the driving forces behind the tragedy. And then, nearly 2 years later, the news everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. In May 2007, after nearly 2 years of relentless investigation, North Yorkshire Police officially charged 47-year-old David Hodgson with causing the death of Jenny Nicholl. Although her body had never been found, the chain of circumstantial evidence, including forensic findings, location data, and especially the linguistic analysis, was strong enough for prosecutors to believe they had a solid foundation to bring the case to trial. North Yorkshire's chief prosecutor, Robert Turnbull, stated, "This is a rare and extremely complex case because there is no body. However, after a thorough and comprehensive review of the evidence, we believe there is sufficient factual basis to prosecute Mr. Hodgson, and it is necessary to ensure that justice is served." The trial of David Hodgson took place at Teesside Crown Court, lasting 5 weeks, and proved to be an agonizing ordeal for the Nicholl family. Jenny's private life was laid bare before the public. Her parents were cross-examined by the defense on deeply personal aspects of their family life, breaking down in tears multiple times in court. Anne described the experience as a character assassination of grieving parents who had already lost their daughter. What made it even more painful was that Jenny's parents only learned of her relationship with David Hodgson during the proceedings, something they had never known before. In an effort to defend himself, David claimed that Jenny had run away to escape an abusive father, an allegation that the judge immediately dismissed, ruling that there was absolutely no evidence to support such a claim. Prosecutor James Goss, QC, told the court that, according to the prosecution's conclusion, David Hodgson had taken Jenny Nicholl's life on the night she disappeared, then hid her body in a remote area of the countryside surrounding Richmond with the intent that it would never be found. Goss argued that the series of text messages sent from Jenny's phone after June 30th were not written by her, but by someone who knew she was already gone, someone trying to fabricate the story that she had left home by choice. The prosecution also presented journey data from the car David Hodgson had rented, showing that the mileage recorded on the odometer almost exactly matched the distance between his home and the Carlisle area near the Scottish border, the very location from which the mysterious messages had been sent. According to prosecutors, this could not have been a coincidence. After several weeks of arguments, both the prosecution and defense concluded their cases, leaving the final decision to the jury. In February 2008, after 10 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a unanimous verdict. David Hodgson was guilty. He was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 18 years before being eligible for parole. As the sentence was read, David remained completely silent, showing no emotion or sign of remorse, while in the gallery behind him, Jenny's parents quietly held each other's hands, tears streaming down their faces, finally hearing the two words they had waited nearly 3 years to hear: guilty. When delivering the sentence, Justice Openshaw stated that there was no doubt that David Hodgson had met Jenny Nicholl on that fateful evening, and that he alone was responsible for the tragedy that followed. "The evidence against the defendant is overwhelming," he said. His deliberate concealment of her body has prolonged the suffering of her family and friends, depriving them of the comfort and closure they so desperately need. I have no doubt that the thought of their daughter still lying somewhere out there in the cold, desolate countryside will remain an open wound in the hearts of those who loved her. He also emphasized that throughout the trial, the defendant had shown no sign of remorse or repentance. After the proceedings concluded, Jenny's parents, Brian and Anne, decided to speak publicly about the painful experience they endured in court, where they had been harshly questioned while only seeking justice for their daughter. They shared their story to express solidarity with the family of Millie Dowler, another young woman who had fallen victim to a tragic crime committed by serial offender Levi Belfield. Like the Nicholl family, Millie's parents had also been subjected to distressing cross-examinations in court, prompting both families to call for reform in the justice system to protect victims' families from being re-traumatized during long and grueling legal proceedings.
For us, the trial has been a truly awful experience. We have felt that our family, who have already suffered so much, has been on trial as much as Mr. Belfield.
The Nicholl family expressed that they felt a deep sense of empathy for what the Dowler family had gone through. You see your own family being questioned one by one, every small detail of your private life examined as if we were the ones on trial, they said. Each witness was cross-examined to the point of character assassination. Many of them broke down in tears as soon as they left the stand, while the defendant sat there calmly, continuing to spin false stories. The Nicholl family called for reform within the British justice system, not only to protect the rights of witnesses, but also to prevent victims' families from enduring further emotional trauma in their pursuit of justice. Despite his conviction, David Hodgson never revealed anything about what had happened to Jenny or where he had hidden her body. His complete silence in the face of pleas from police, family members, and investigators prolonged the agony of those who loved Jenny for years. When David's case later came before the parole board for review, that silence became a central issue, one that helped inspire and bring before Parliament a new piece of legislation known as Helen's Law, designed to ensure that serious offenders would not be eligible for parole if they continued to conceal the resting place of their victims.
Helen's Law has come one step closer to being introduced today. It's named after murdered 22-year-old Helen McCourt and has been pushed for by her mother. Mari McCourt has never been able to lay her daughter to rest because Helen's killer refuses to reveal where her body is. Well, now Mari wants to see prisoners kept behind bars until they share vital details about their crimes.
The Prisoners' Disclosure of Victims' Locations Act, commonly known as Helen's Law, was officially passed by the British Parliament in January 2021. The law was established to ensure that in any case where a convicted individual causes a victim's death and then deliberately refuses to reveal the location of the body or withholds related information, such behavior will be treated as a serious factor by the parole board when considering their release. Jenny's parents said they had never directly asked David Hodgson what he had done to their daughter or where her body might be. They explained that they would never put themselves in a position of begging someone like him, as doing so would only give him more power, the same power David had once used to manipulate Jenny when she was alive. Anne said they refused to let him take satisfaction in holding on to the final secret. She firmly stated, if he thinks that continuing to deny what he did will help him get out of prison sooner, he's wrong. His deliberate refusal to tell the truth and his lack of remorse only prove that he remains a danger to society. Any future parole hearings must take that into account. For the Nicholl family, David's silence is not just another offense. It is a wound that will never heal in their long journey for justice for their daughter. After his conviction, David Hodgson filed several appeals seeking a reduced sentence or early release, but all were denied. In his most recent parole hearing, the parole board formally cited Helen's law, emphasizing that his deliberate refusal to reveal where Jenny rests was one of the main reasons his request was rejected. To this day, David Hodgson remains in prison and has never shown any remorse or willingness to cooperate. The case remains not only an immeasurable loss for the Nicholl family, but also a lingering wound for the North Yorkshire police officers who spent years searching for Jenny, but were unable to bring her home. Retired Assistant Chief Constable Sue Cross shared that she still often thinks of Jenny, and every time she hears a song on the radio or passes by the Sandbeck Woods, memories of the case return to her mind. She said, "Sometimes I wonder if we missed an opportunity to find her. It would be wonderful if one day we could locate Jenny and bring her back to Anne and Brian." Her words, gentle yet filled with sorrow, perfectly capture the enduring ache of everyone who took part in the investigation, a pain that has never faded, even though justice has been served. The story of Jenny Nicholl stands as one of the most heartbreaking cases ever to emerge from North Yorkshire, not only because of the immense loss, but also because of how it unfolded in silence, leaving behind questions that will never be answered. From the age of 14, Jenny was manipulated by an older man, someone who gradually took control of her life and ultimately stole her future. Although justice was served, Jenny's body has never been found, and as in many similar cases, the absence of her remains has left her family trapped in a painful limbo, suspended between hope and despair. Anne Nicholl once said through tears, "The hardest part isn't just losing my child. It's not knowing what happened to her. The thought that the baby I carried, raised, and loved could have been treated as if she didn't matter. That's a pain no parent should ever have to endure." Jenny Nicholl was, is, and will always be significant. She was a vibrant young woman who loved music, nature, and life itself, and she deserves to be remembered as a symbol of justice and hope. Though she is no longer here, Jenny's story will forever serve as a reminder that every life matters, and that no one, whether lost in silence or darkness, should ever be forgotten. And that is the heartbreaking story of Jenny Nicholl, the young woman with a gentle smile, a love for music, and an unwavering belief in the good things in life. This case is not only a tragedy retold in the true crime documentary series, but also a powerful reminder that sometimes the people we trust the most can be the ones who hurt us the deepest. It teaches us to listen to our instincts, to have the courage to walk away when we feel controlled or threatened, and to never stay silent in the face of wrongdoing. Jenny may be gone, but her story lives on, as both a warning and a beacon of hope that justice, even when delayed, will always prevail. Thank you for staying until the end of today's story in True Crime Documentary. If you believe that Jenny Nicholl deserves to be remembered, please share this video, leave a comment in her memory, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to join us in the next episode, where together we continue our journey of telling the truth with respect for those who no longer have a voice.